welcome.
Okay, thank you. So we talked a little bit about you yesterday and then again just a minute ago, and we talked about how you had gotten a book published, and you did such a nice job with it that you were asked to write another story and have it published.
Yeah.
So some of us are reading your book now, and some of us haven't had that opportunity yet. But we are excited to listen to you.
Well, which book are you reading? Yeah. So that one's my first one. That one came out in 2014. And then the paperback came out last year. And so this is my first book that I ever wrote. And then this book, Pilfer Academy, A School So Bad It's Criminal, is the second book. And it just came out last week, so it's brand new. So this is actually the one I'm going to read for you guys today, just because it's so new. Raise your hand if you've seen this cover before. That's okay, because it's so new. Oh, okay, a few people. All right, well, so if you don't know what the story's about, I'll explain. It's about a boy who gets kidnapped in an ice cream truck and taken to a school for thieves and criminals. And as they're training him to be the worst criminal imaginable, he has to decide whether or not that's something he really wants for himself. So I'm going to read a little bit from chapter 2 for you guys, just because I think it's my favorite of all of the beginning chapters. So what happens in chapter 1 is that George is caught stealing from his siblings' rooms, although he calls it borrowing. And when he is getting in trouble, he storms out of the house. He runs into an ice cream truck, but little does he know that the ice cream truck has been following him purposely, watching him all day. And when he goes to order ice cream, triple dipple ultra deluxe melted creamy creamer rainbow swizzle milk munch ice cream, there is 2 people in the ice cream truck, a woman and a man. They're both wearing fake mustaches. So when you hear in this second chapter the double mustache driver, that just means that he's wearing a fake mustache on top of his already real mustache. And the 2 people in the truck, they trap him in a net, and they drag him into the ice cream truck, and this is where I'm going to begin. George was tossed around in the back of the van like scrambled eggs as the truck sped down the highway. The woman fastened him down with some heavy-duty duct tape. George spat at her, and he only narrowly missed her face. "This is illegal!" George screamed. "This is kidnapping!" "This is not kidnapping," the woman said. "This is a highly successful mission of person stealing. I have 2 parents and 4 older siblings who are going to beat you up if you don't return me." The woman leered at him. "Who are you?" George said, pushing against his bonds. "What do you want with me?" The woman ignored him and went back to navigating the double-mustached driver. She peered at a clearly upside-down map and pulled out binoculars to look out the window. After about a half hour on the road, she made the double-mustached man stop the car. The woman left the door wide open as she stepped out onto the side of the road. She licked her finger and held it up in the air. "The wind is blowing from all directions, which means we should head northwest-southeast," she said matter-of-factly. The man hopped outside and leaned on the van, which wobbled when he put his weight on it. "We just have to follow the North Star," he grunted. "Magnificent idea, Ballyrag." They made a big show of looking high and low and left and right and up and down for the North Star. "I'm going to check under the car," the woman said. "Stop!" George shouted, struggling with the heavy-duty tape tying him down. "It's the middle of the afternoon." "It is?" said the man named Ballyrag. "Strong arm, it's the middle of the afternoon." "It is?" "It is." There was a pause. Ballyrag scratched his head. "Do you know what that means?" George prompted. "Undubiously," Ballyrag said. "It's time for tea and rumpets with raspberry preservatives." "Don't forget the clotted cream," shouted the woman, strong arm, from under the truck. George rolled his eyes. "No, it means you won't find the North Star. The sun's still out." "Oh," Ballyrag frowned. "Hey, strong arm, the kid says we won't find the North Star." "Why not?" "The sun's still out." "So?" So, said Ballyrag, it's hiding the star. Well, don't worry, Strongarm shouted, crawling out from under the car. I'll find it now that I know exactly where to look. If the star is behind the sun, why, then all I have to do is stare directly into the sun with my binoculars, and eventually I'll see right through it. What a magniferous idea, Ballyrag said, clapping his hands and squealing. Strongarm held the binoculars up to her eyes and pointed them straight at the sun. Ballyrag hulked over to where George was lying, all tied up. I should make those rumpets now, he said, sticking his head back in the ice cream truck. You know, in some countries it's forbidden to miss tea time. Like where? New Hampshire, Ballyrag said, authoritatively, twirling the ends of his golden mustache. Unbelievable, George thought. I've been kidnapped by idiots. When Ballyrag left to rejoin Strongarm in her quest to find the North Star, George realized it was the perfect time to make his escape. He wiggled and wriggled and thrashed against the tape that was gluing him to the floor of the ice cream truck. But it was no use. He was stuck tight. He tilted his head to see what Strongarm and Ballyrag were up to. Ballyrag was looking at Strongarm. Strongarm was still peering straight into the sun. Finally, she put down her binoculars. See? I told you I was right. All I had to do was stare at the sun until it became nighttime. Now quick! Somebody locate the North Star. George tried to exchange a glance with Ballyrag, but Ballyrag was too busy scratching his head. It's still the middle of the afternoon, George said. It's one of the sunniest days I've ever seen. So? Said Strongarm. So? Repeated Ballyrag. So, you've gone blind from the sun. Really, Ballyrag said. Strongarm, are you going blinded? I cannot see, she announced. Ballyrag, help me. He walked over to her and grabbed her arm. Where should I take you? To the driver's seat. George spluttered. But you can't drive if you can't see. But how can I see if I can't drive? Good point, Ballyrag muttered. That is not a good point, George shouted. That doesn't make sense at all. After a very unsuccessful attempt of begging Ballyrag to drive, George was finally able to bribe him, his left shoe in exchange for Ballyrag in the driver's seat. Though why Ballyrag wanted George's left shoe was beyond him. Ballyrag buckled Strongarm in, then hopped into the back of the van to take what was his. He wiggled the shoe off George's foot and tied the laces around his neck to make what looked like a shoe necklace. Ballyrag took a big whiff and coughed. You have stinky feet, he said as he stroked the shoe necklace fondly. He shut the truck doors again, jumped into the driver's seat, and away they drove. Do you have sunscreen? Strongarm asked Ballyrag after Ballyrag's third illegal U-turn. I think my eyeballs are sunburned. Ballyrag dug into the side compartment and found a tube for Strongarm, who globbed it onto her hands and delicately swabbed her eyes. Ow! She howled. George, meanwhile, was still struggling with the tape around his wrists and ankles. They must have driven for 3 or 4 hours before the truck finally stopped. Strongarm's eyes had begun to clear up, and Ballyrag had, apparently, driven in the right direction, because when Strongarm looked out the window, she clapped, giggling madly. George tried to peer out the front windshield, but from where he was tied up, he couldn't see anything but a winding road that disappeared up a hill. We're here, Strongarm said. And where's that? George asked. What do you want with me? Strongarm climbed into the back of the truck and pulled a nail clipper out of her pocket. Hold still, Strongarm said. These things are very dangerous. She proceeded to cut the tape and netting away from him. After 15 minutes, she succeeded. The second his arms were loose, George pushed her. She tumbled back and hit the wall of the truck. He jumped out its open doors, picked a direction, and ran. But it didn't matter, because Ballyrag caught up with him in less than 3 seconds. And no wonder, his legs were as tall as George's entire body. Ballyrag plucked George off the ground by the scruff of his shirt and dangled him as far away from himself as possible, like he was a stinky diaper. George couldn't understand this at all. He couldn't have been any stinkier than the shoe under Ballyrag's nose. You're running in the wrong direction, Ballyrag said. Here. He carried George, and when they were right underneath an iron gate, Ballyrag turned him around so that he was staring at a long, twisty path that led up the hill. And at the top of the hill was the most amazing thing George had ever seen. A beautiful Gothic manor with top exterior walls and colorful stained glass windows. The building was so wide, it looked like it had eaten 7 normal-sized buildings. And all over, the mansion was adorned with striking archways and ribbed vaults and tall spires and flying buttresses. It was stunning, but very out of place in the middle of nowhere, USA. Beautiful, George gasped. We know. We transplanted it from Europe. Here, read the engraving, Ballyrag said, lowering him a bit and shoving his face in front of an engraved plaque. Pilfer Academy of Filching Arts. We steal things. Finders keepers, losers weepers. Ta-da! Strongarm and Ballyrag shouted. Strongarm even threw in some jazz hands for ta-da effect. George's mouth felt far too dry. What is this place? He croaked, even though he somehow knew exactly what they were going to say. Your new school, Strongarm said with a wicked grin, and home sweet home. So that's chapter 2 for you guys. So do you guys have any questions for me about the writing process or publishing or revisions?
Go ahead, ask your question. Nice and loud. How long did it take you to make the book?
Can you repeat that again?
How long did it take you to make the book?
How long does it take me to make the book?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's a really hard question to answer, actually, because it took me about 1 month to do the first draft of The Only Thing Worse Than Witches. But the first draft was very far from over. So I'm going to let you guess how long it took me to edit this. So raise your hand if you think that it took me about 6 months to edit it. Raise your hand if you think it took about 9 months. Raise your hand if you think it took about a year. Raise your hand if you think it took about 1.5 years. Raise your hand if you think it took 2 years. When all is said and done, it took about 2 years to edit this. Yeah, because after I wrote the first draft in about a month, then I worked on it with a friend for about 2 months. Then I worked on it with an agent for about 3 months. Then I worked on it with an editor for about 1.5 years. So it just took a long time. And then this one had sort of a very similar timeline. So I wrote the first draft of Pilfer Academy in about 3 months. And then I worked on it with my editor for about 1.5 years. So books take a long time to come together.
How many hours did you work on it in a day?
Can you say that again a little louder?
How many hours did you work on it in a day?
How many hours did you work on it a day?
Yeah.
Well, I guess it depends on the day, and it depends on the book. For Pilfer Academy, I was writing this while I was also working during the day at Scholastic magazine. So I ended up only having nights and weekends to work on it. That said, I think I tried to work on it on the weekends, I worked on it like 12 to 14 hours on a day on the weekends, which is a lot. And then on weeknights, I would try to put in like between 4 and 6 hours before I got too tired and had to go to bed. This one sort of came out in a frenzied burst. And so some days I was writing 6 hours a day. Some days I was writing 14 hours a day. It all really sort of depended.
Go ahead, nice and loud.
Who helped you when you made both of the books?
Did you hear that?
No, I didn't.
Okay, say it again, nice and loud.
Who helped you when you made the books?
Who helped me when I made the books?
Yeah.
Well, there are a lot of people who help out in the process. There's my agent who connected me to a publisher. Then there's my editor who helps me make it a lot better. And then there are people who are my editor's bosses who also read the book and make comments to my editor to make comments to me about how to make it better and stronger. So there's like a lot of people who are reading it and helping me make it better. And then there's a lot of people who help out even after like the manuscript itself is done. So there's a whole team of people who market the book, and there's somebody who is a publicist who sends it out to like magazines and newspapers to try and get them to cover the book. There's people who work in design, and they help come up with like the way that the book should look and the way that it feels. And then there are people who work in production who make sure that the book is on schedule and who help, with the actual coming together of the book. So there's like a lot of different teams of people who are helping out.
Nice and loud.
Why did you want to make a book?
Why did you want to make a book?
Make a book. Well, it all sort of started when I had some really amazing teachers. And I guess I found that I really loved writing when I had a fourth grade teacher who did writing workshops in our classes, and every month we had to hand in a 3 to 5 page short story. But I got really into this one story. It was about World War II, and I asked if I could keep going with it. And thankfully he said that I didn't have to hand it in yet, that I could just keep working on it, throughout the next few months. And then after 3 months I handed it in, and it was 30 pages long. And that was my first, real experience with writing a longer short story, which I really loved. And then in 8th grade, when I was 13, I had this English teacher who, she encouraged me to go home and write a book. She was like, I think you could write a book. And I said, really? And because I hadn't really thought about doing it. But after she said that, I went home and I opened up a Word document and I started writing. And I wrote every day after school, and then I finished the first draft of that book about 6 months later, but it wasn't a very good book. It was pretty rough, but I loved the process so much that I knew that I wanted to keep working on it and keep improving. So I wrote all throughout middle school and wrote all throughout high school and all throughout college until I felt like I wrote something special. So, which was the only thing worse than witches. And so, yeah, I think that that's really what started me with writing and got me really interested in writing books.
Do you think you're going to make another book?
Can you repeat that a little louder?
Do you think you're going to make another book?
I still can't hear.
Okay, do you think you're going to make another book?
Oh, yes, yeah. That's a great question, and I definitely am. So we just announced last week that Penguin bought my 3rd book. So it's supposed to come out next year. Currently it's called Wizard Match, but that's definitely going to change because I'm 0 for 2 with titles right now. I'm really bad at titling. So... but it's about this grand wizard with all of these unlimited powers. His name is Mortimer de Pomperomp, and he holds a competition to see which of his grandchildren he's going to pass along his powers to. And the one catch is that there's only one grandchild per family can compete. So the story really centers around this girl named Lenny who she wants to compete, but her parents nominate her younger brother to compete instead of her. So it sort of leads her to try and sabotage the competition and try and prove that she has what it takes to be the next Grand Wizard. It's funny, just like Witches and Pilfer Academy.
In the green over here, nice and loud. Did you write a book when you were little?
I think the first book I wrote when I was 13. I don't know if that counts as I don't know if that's as little as you guys might think.
Go ahead. Nice and loud.
Did you make the cover by yourself?
Did I make the cover by myself?
Yep.
No, actually, I can't draw at all to save my life. I wish I could, though. And so, actually, the way that this process works, it's super interesting. So the publisher, they have a whole team of people who are, really amazing at art and graphic design, and they come up with what they think should be on the cover of a book. And they also talk about who they think might be the best illustrator for that book. So in the case of The Only Thing Worse Than Witches, they hired this illustrator. His name is Erwin Madrid. He lives in California. He used to work for DreamWorks, so he worked on Shrek 3 and Madagascar 2, among some others, I think. And so he came back with a draft of this that was like nearly close to final. The only things that were different between the first cover I saw and this one was that originally she was wearing, it was like a cone on top of her head. It looked almost like a dunce cap. So I asked if they could make it look a little bit more like a witch hat without like wider brim. And then Rupert originally had kind of a receding hairline, which means that he looked almost bald. And it made him look a lot older than he was. So I asked if they could fill in his hair a little bit. And then in the back of the book, there's some witches flying around. And originally there weren't any of the witches flying around. But I asked if they could add it to make the town look a little bit more witchy. So they added those. So that's really the only say the author gets. So I saw like a near final version of the cover. But other than that, it's like the design team and the illustrator work together on it. For this one, the illustrator's name is Andrew Banneker. And he's done the, I think some campaigns for Oreos, like the Wonder-Filled Oreos, I think are some of the things that he's done, which is pretty cool. And so this one was like, the image was exactly the same as the first time I saw it. The only things that really changed were the colors. We kept going back and forth on the colors. So originally it was purple, then it was dark blue, then it was all like teal, all one color. But then we wanted the like mansion and the sky to, stand out from each other. So they found this really cool turquoise color, and then they darkened the mansion and they lightened the sky. And so then now I think it pops a lot more.
Are you still okay to take some more questions?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Over here. Go ahead. Yep, nice and loud.
Which book is your favorite?
That is really tough. That's a question that everybody asks me. You're talking about ones I've written, right? Not ones that I've read?
Ones she's written?
Ones that you read.
Ones that you read.
Oh, that's a much easier question. Okay. My favorite series of all time is the Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling. Yeah, you guys have read that too. That's my favorite of all time. I also really love the BFG by Roald Dahl. And I also really love Sideways Stories from Wayside School by Louis Sachar. These are all my favorites from when I was little. And by little, I mean your age. So not that little. And then, I love Secret of Platform 13 by Eva Abatson. You guys read that one? That one's really funny. A Wrinkle in Time. Walk Two Moons. I know I'm probably forgetting a million others. My current favorites right now, I really love El Defo. I don't know if you guys have read that yet. It's a graphic novel. It came out in 2014 or 13. I don't know. It's really good. And I really love Hamster Princess Harriet the Invincible. I love The League of Beastly Dreadfuls. Percy Jackson I really love. You guys read Percy Jackson? Yeah. I love those.
Okay. Erica, nice and loud.
What's your favorite book you written?
See, now that's the one. So this is the hardest question for me because I love them both for very different reasons, and this is like asking me to choose between children. But I think because Pilfer is brand new this week, I'm going to have to just go with Pilfer for this week because I'm really excited about it.
What will your next book be about?
She talked a little bit about that. He had said, what will your next book be about?
Did I explain that one?
Yeah, I think it's the... Excuse me. I think that is the one you just explained.
Yeah, about the Grand Wizard Mortimer de Pomperour and his competition.
Yes. Okay, go ahead here in the pink.
Do you want all your books to be children's books?
Do you want all your books to be children's books, meant for children to read?
I think that eventually I'm probably going to start branching out into, older books and even younger books too. But right now I'm really, really happy with books for this age group. I think, one of the best things about writing kids' books is that they get to be really funny and really fun. And I love laughing. I love making other people laugh. And a lot of my writing is just me sitting in front of a keyboard, chuckling to myself. And I don't know of any other age group in which you can really do that. Just, sit and type and laugh a lot.
You forgot your train of thought. That's okay. We'll come back.
How many books have I written?
Yes.
Well, so these two are the only ones that are published, but do you guys want to play a guessing game on how many I wrote before The Only Thing Worse Than Witches?
Yeah.
Okay, so raise your hand if you think I wrote one book before The Only Thing Worse Than Witches. Raise your hand if you think I wrote 3 before The Only Thing Worse Than Witches. Raise your hand if you think I wrote 5 before The Only Thing Worse Than Witches. Raise your hand if you think I wrote 7 books before The Only Thing Worse Than Witches. And raise your hand if you think I wrote 10 books before The Only Thing Worse Than Witches. I wrote 10 books before I wrote The Only Thing Worse Than Witches. That's one thing that a lot of people won't tell you, but a lot of writing is just sheer determination and a lot of practice. It doesn't come out perfectly the first time. And sometimes it takes many, many years to really, know what you're doing and get it right. I think because I started writing at age 13 and I didn't get my first book published till I was 24. So that's a lot of years of writing before, putting in a lot of practice. So with anything that you love, even if, not just writing, but anything you love, you have to practice a lot at it.
In any of your books, are there pictures in the inside, like a black and white?
There aren't pictures on the inside. They have a cool design feature. They're cool little thief masks on the top of all the chapters. And The Only Thing Worse Than Witches, they've got witches' hats. But no, there aren't any illustrations on the inside, just on the outside. You have to use your imagination to figure out what the characters are doing and what they look like.
Are you writing a series of specific books or just random books?
I didn't hear that one.
Okay, she asked, are you planning to write a series?
Yeah, I definitely am planning to write a series. Not out of any of these. I think these, the 2 that I have so far are very firmly standalones. And the third one that's going to come out next summer is a standalone. But I definitely... I'm working on the start of a series right now, so I definitely have a series in mind. And I think I might have time for one more.
Okay, right here.
Did you read all your books that you read?
Did you read all the books that you wrote once they were complete?
Yeah, so... I bet that you guys will never guess how many times you would have to read your own book as a writer. They always say to write something that you love because you're going to have to read it a million times. I think I've read each of these books about 50 times, possibly more. I had to read it every round of edits multiple times, and I had to read it at the very end of the process. They give you called first half pages, which is pages all sort of laid out how they would look, and you have to read through and make sure that formatting errors or typos or things that didn't get translated over right. So that's when you read it when it's almost final. I have gone back and I've read it after it's been published. I know a lot of authors don't do that because they're afraid of finding mistakes or feeling like they want to edit something, but I went back and I did it just for fun because I was very proud of it. But yeah, I think, I've read these both more times than you could possibly imagine, and I have passages memorized from both of them, so.
All right, well, we thank you greatly for your time today. And boys and girls, what do we say?
You're welcome. And I just remembered that I didn't send you guys the pictures yet that you wanted to see. So I'll send you some cool pictures of this that inspired Nancy Helper.
Oh, that will be fantastic. Thank you so very much. All right. You say bye?
Bye.
Bye. Have